Will Star Trek learn their lesson based on Star Trek Discovery? This is actually a pretty nice article I ran into today in Red Shirts Always Die. Much better Star Trek news website than I've ever seen. Most of these, if you look at like trekmovie.com, they've got the, I mean, they definitely haven't learned their lesson. You could see they're making a whole weird transgender pride thing out of Star Trek here, which is kind of the lesson that never got learned. But Discovery was a train wreck, and Season 5 in particular just was blah. It actually wasn't the worst season of Discovery by far. The first season was an insult to everybody as they ruined the Klingons, turned the Klingons into these like monsters who just were an allegory for MAGA people going against the strong black female lead, who by the way, like was insubordinate, got thrown in jail, and for some reason then ends up being captain of a starship later on in the series. It makes no sense. But hey, she's a Mary Sue. She can do whatever she wants, and she's still better than everybody else. And that premise flaw right there, with the strong black lady being better than everybody, was at the core of Discovery's main problem. On top of that, you get into Season 2 and Season 3, and it just becomes this like nutty homosexual transgender lecture at you with pronouns and everything. I mean, it was terrible. Now, Season 5, as a comparison, was probably the best one of the show. But they'll get into why it's a bad episode anyway. I mean, I say an episode. It is really one long episode. Each season is one long episode, and that's another problem with the show. But it's really interesting analysis I saw right here. I don't think they're going to learn their lesson, though, Chad Porto, who wrote this, and I'll tell you why. My name's John Delarose. I'm a #1 best-selling science fiction author. I would love for you to check out my series, The Arishan War. This is a 3-book trilogy, which really delves deep into issues between humans and aliens. It's a lot of fun, and I hope you'll check it out. I'll put this link in the description below for you. I'm writing a space exploration series that's going to dovetail out of this, so catch up now while I'm writing this, so you get to know my universe. Thanks so much for the support of the books, and like I said, the link's in the description below. I hope you'll hit the like and subscribe button and join us here, and we have a lot of fun. So, this is interesting. It says, Star Trek Discovery made the baffling call to build its entire final season around a subpar episode from Star Trek The Next Generation called The Chase, which sees several groups racing across space and time to try to unlock the mysteries of a shared past. There's this group called the Progenitors in it, and the Progenitors basically seeded all human life and Romulan life and Cardassian life and Klingon. It explains like why all the characters look like humans with rubber masks on as the show develops. And of course, like as the show's developed even further, you know, they're leaning away from that a little bit. We got a lot of that with Voyager with species 8472. But it's hard because that costs money, costs CGI, and it's much easier to just throw some rubber pointy ears on somebody and call it an alien, right? But that's also charming. It also makes the aliens kind of relatable. And that's part of Star Trek. It's part of Star Wars, and it's fun. So you didn't really need an explanation, but it was a tongue-in-cheek thing. They didn't really care about it. They weren't really taking it too seriously in The Next Generation. It's really not one of the best episodes of the show, and yet Discovery makes their entire ending about this, and so it goes pretty bad. It is a weak story, as this guy writes in this article, but this is a pretty interesting analysis here, which I really am interested in. It says, much like the episode, the 5th season didn't answer any real questions and over-relied on the tired Discovery trope of emotions over intelligence to solve problems. This was a huge problem with the show. They just sat there, and you'd have the gay guys like on the ship just be like, what we need to do is express our feelings together. And then the fat chick would just be like, my feelings are that the subsonic inducers need to operate the space clamps on the southern nacelle, and she'd just say the stuff that makes no sense, and then like the gay guy would go, yeah, science. It was really bad. There's always been technobabble in Star Trek, but this took it to a whole level of absurdity, where they were just doing things in like 30 seconds that would have taken a decade to actually do if you actually thought it out, and it made no sense. And then they sat and whined about their feelings quite a bit. So hopefully this failure of a show ends Star Trek trying to stretch out poorly conceived concepts from a single episode, trying to make it into an entire series. And that's a hallmark of fan fiction. if you read a lot of the like poorly written like novels of Star Trek or comics, not that all of those are poorly written, there's good ones. A lot of them try to dovetail out of an episode or be a sequel to an episode. I was reading one the other day, and I've enjoyed this series so far for the most part. New Frontier by Peter David, but the last couple of novels, like they threw in Scotty, like in Ryza, and he's like a greeter at Ryza now. It's like, okay, that's two concepts that shouldn't have been thrown together. One of the characters just has Q show up real quick, like in the same novel, and it's like, then Spock shows up, and it's like, okay, you're throwing in all of these, and then the Romulans show up. It's like, okay, write a science fiction concept. And most of the New Frontier stuff before that was all like unexplored space, like newly explored space that like had new concepts and stuff. It was a lot of fun. When you do this, it really comes across as fan fiction, and that's what Discovery Season 5 really felt like more than anything else. We've got the Breen here looking for the progenitor tech. Oh, this is what the Breen look like now. And the Breen were ultimately, they used to be a mysterious race, which were scary, and now they're not. Now they're just a generic fantasy space race, like who's warlike, and it's not a mystery, and it's not fun anymore. So they kind of wrecked that there. So interesting stuff. The end of Discovery left a sour taste in the mouths of many. As the end of the day, there was no change in the status quo, predictable and many expected, which is not necessarily a problem. It's just they just kept being Discovery. Discovery promised answers to one of the franchise's earliest questions and failed to deliver. Now, I don't think they're going to learn anything from this. What they're doing is they're building a Starfleet Academy show with a strong female lead in charge of the Academy, who is going to be, it's going to be probably a big gay fest in the Academy where they just navel gaze and stare at their feelings and stuff like that again. I mean, that's what an Academy show kind of is going to end up being. But I don't really see that getting better from there. And I did a video over the weekend where the lead of Strange New World says that they're going to get things more wacky than the musical episode, which Strange New Worlds is going off the rails kind of in the opposite direction, right? So if you look at that, major problem. And that's exactly what we have here. This is going to be the head of the Starfleet Academy. This is the lead they're picking. You can tell she's going to be like a space Karen. So I don't see this happening anytime soon, at least in the TV shows. I think things are going off track. I know that they're doing a new season of Star Trek Prodigy that's dropping on July 2nd, I believe. And Star Trek Prodigy is actually interesting. It was a Nickelodeon show, and a lot of people just kind of wrote that off because it was a campy, cheesy cartoon. I was a little worried at the beginning that they were going to put a bunch of trans allegories into it, but it turned out to be like pretty cute, and it was about a bunch of scrappy, plucky, strange alien creatures like trying to LARP at being Starfleet cadets, and they actually like tried to like live up to the values of Star Trek, and with Kate Mulgrew being a hologram Janeway in it, it was kind of fun. So I'm looking forward to season 2 on that front, but everybody kind of writes that off as like not real Trek, unlike these ones, even though it's the closest thing to a spiritual successor to Star Trek than there is. I did a members-only video also about this Positively Trek book club the other day with a Pliable Truths with Dayton Ward. And in that video for the members, I go off on just like what it takes to actually do honor to a franchise. And that's something there, we might get this a little bit in the novelizations. I'm kind of sad on the novelization front because they've erased a lot of the continuity. They had their whole extended universe like Star Wars had it, if you didn't know, that really just stretched out the end of Next Generation and Deep Space Nine and Voyager to like 20 years in the future. And they had to erase it because Picard's continuity was so bullshit that they wanted to keep up with that and actually try to make it work with that for the novels going forward, which is too bad because that was a really nice thing as well. But Dayton Ward, who's been writing with them for a long time, did a nice interview here on his new book, which just came out, and talks about like really caring about continuity and caring about the lore. And I think that's a problem you get with these writers these days, and the showrunners like Alex Kurtzman. They don't really care about the lore. They're trying to like build this like modern audiences BS, trying to just change things around and reinvent the wheel and their vision, subvert expectations. They always likes to say, and it always ends up shit when they do so. So that's the problem with Trek these days. But oh my gosh, I don't know that anybody cares about Trek. I do. I just like, I'm a big Star Trek fan from way back, and that's why I write these days. And so I hope you'll check out my books in the description. Thanks so much for being there and listening to my rant about Star Trek. We'll be back soon with more science fiction coverage of every stripe. It's real diversity, right? And inclusivity. I hope you feel so. Hit the like and subscribe button. We'll be back soon.